Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of CaN, Gallant Current Affairs and News Analysis. So today we will be discussing about the important prelims current affairs topic which we found in last week's news from 12th of November to about 18th of November. So let us look into the important topics of that. From Poity we have to deal with two important topics about death penalty as well as the electoral bonds. Then schemes, we have the Vibrant Village Program scheme, PVTG schemes as well as the Village Defence Guards scheme. Coming into the international relations, we have a lot of topics. We have about the Thai River, Sea Guardian Tree, Marumex, Combined Maritime Force, Global South Summit, Indo-Pacific Regional Dialogue, Catalonia as well as the Collective Security Treaty Organization. Moving on, we have environment topics, Greenhouse Gas Bulletin, we have Stubble Burning, Forest Conservation Act. From Science and Technology, we have the UKL Space Telescope, White Hole, RACH Equation, NISAR, we have chikungunya vaccine, Fentanyl, as well as from the arts and craft topic we have the leather puppetry. Now let's look into the prelims questions and also about the articles that has been in this newspaper recently. So first we will be discussing the Poity section. So with respect to the death penalty in India, consider the following statements. The Supreme Court affirmed the constitutional validity of the death penalty in the Bachan Singh versus the state of Punjab case. The courts can grant death penalty only in the rarest of the rare cases. Majority of the death penalties in India is actually awarded by the trial courts rather than the higher courts. We need to choose a number of the correct statements. So the thing is that recently there was an article, 2-3 articles within the newspaper dealing with the death penalty, because the number of cases that has been actually handled, like there was about 165 cases of death penalty within the last year. So till now we had a lot of death penalty that has been actually awarded by the trial courts rather than the higher courts and the Supreme Court. The majority of the cases that has been actually awarded a death penalty by the trial court has been actually come down to or given down to life imprisonment by the high courts. So regarding that, there has been actually articles out there. We also discussed about the Project 39A. In our last class, we discussed about the Project 39A dealing with the judicial kind of reforms as such. From that also we actually discovered that a lot of such death penalties are actually given by the trial courts and not the higher courts. Also the courts can grant death penalty only in the rarest of the rare cases. That is also correct statement. The thing is that if a person does only very heinous crimes, then only in the rarest of the rare cases can the court award a death penalty. The thing is, majority of the countries, especially if you are looking into the developed countries, such kind of death penalty is actually totally abolished. Even when the Bharat Nyaya Samhita was actually presented in the parliament, the author of the article in the last week's Hindu stated that the death penalty in India is still not revoked. It is still present. Even the parliamentary committee who had to actually undergo scrutiny of this Bharat Nyaya Samhita bill also, they did not recommend the abolition of death penalty altogether. The thing is that a country like India still uphold the death penalty. As far as I have to, even the Supreme Court affirmed the constitutional validity of death penalty in the Bachan Singh versus the state of Punjab case in 1980. So like the countries like US, Australia, for all of that countries like developed countries, the death penalty concept is actually not there. It has been revoked. But certain countries like India, Qatar and such Middle East countries still actually undergo this kind of death penalty. But in India, we can use it only in the rarest of the rare cases, and its constitutional validity is actually given by the Supreme Court. So here we need to choose a number of correct statements. So all the 3 statements are actually correct here. Moving on, we have with respect to the electoral bonds, consider the following statements. The electoral bonds can be purchased by a foreign company incorporated in India. The RBI is the sole authorized bank to sell and redeem the bonds. A political party must have at least 1% vote share in the most recent general elections or to receive donations via electoral bonds. Electoral bonds are bearer instruments in the nature of promissory notes. So let us look what are electoral bonds and then come back to this question again. So if you are looking here, Electoral bonds, as I have told you, they have a nature. They are kind of a bearer of promissory note, and they are an interest-free kind of a banking mechanism. A citizen of India or a body who is actually incorporated in India, it can even be a foreign company. A foreign company not incorporated in India cannot actually buy this electoral bond, but a foreign company who is registered in India as an incorporate limited or something, they can actually buy this, purchase this electoral bond as well. What is this electoral bond? The thing is that for getting the fund for the political party, and what they have seen to increase the transparency and the autonomy, they introduced this electoral bonds in 2017-2018 time. You can buy this electoral bonds only 4 times per year, like we have just 4 times and issued in purchase of multiple of 1000, 10,000, 1 lakh, 10 lakh, 1 crore, etc. So that is the 5 category under which we can actually issue or purchase this electoral bonds, and this is specifically available with branches of State Bank of India. It's not under the RBI but the State Bank of India. Only 29 branches of the State Bank of India is actually allowed to give out this electoral bonds in India. They can be actually used, this electoral bonds, what are their purpose? They can be actually used for making donations to the political parties, and only to the political parties. For this, the political party should have at least 1% of vote share in the general election or the assembly election, so as to get the donations via this electoral bond. So this is actually given out by the Representation of People Act of 1915. So who can all purchase the electoral bonds? Any citizen of India, or an incorporated or an established in India, including the foreign incorporated companies, can actually buy this electoral bonds from India. So what is electoral bonds? As I have told you, it's only sold 4 times here, from 1 to 10th of January, April, July and October. So these are the 4 months, from 1st to 10th of January, 1st to 10th of April, July and October. Only these 4 months we can actually purchase, only these 4 times we can actually purchase this electoral bonds as such, and they are sold in multiples of 1000, 10,000, 1 lakh, 10 lakh and 1 crore, and this scheme was first floated in 2018. SBI is the sole authority, as I have told you, who can actually sell this, and the political party must have at least 1% of vote share to get this. But there is a lot of controversy regarding this. As I have told you, you might have studied in your main classes the controversy regarding it. This was actually introduced to ensure that there is more transparency in the funding system of the political party, so that this election campaign and everything can be done without the encryption of any black money and such. But the problem with this thing is that the donor is anonymous in particular cases. So till about 1,000, 2,000 rupees you can actually pay in cash. About 2,000 to 20,000 you can actually pay in cash or digitalize or anything. More than 2,000 only there is actually a kind of digital transaction. About 20,000, if you are actually giving to a party a fund more than 20,000, that will be digitally recorded. So that, which means that there is proper source associated with that. But if you are actually giving a funding less than 20,000, the problem is that you can actually give that via cash also. We don't know if that is a black money or something. We don't know if proper source of funding, there is a kind of anonymity in it. Also, the person who is actually purchasing this bond, the name, the anonymity should not be actually revealed to the political parties, and also to the other people. The banks and such cannot reveal these data as all. That creates a lot of problem with the transparency as such. The scheme, what is the electoral bonds, that was introduced to ensure the transparency is actually not working correctly regarding to it. So that is a controversy that has been actually relating to this electoral bond introduction, and this, there has been a lot of PIL that has been actually filed in the Supreme Court, and the cases are actually running around this. So we saw what is electoral bonds. So the electoral bonds can be purchased by a foreign company incorporated in India. As I have told you, it's a correct statement. The RBI is the sole authority to sell and redeem the bond. No, it is not RBI, by the State Bank of India. A political party must have at least 1% vote share in the most recent general election or assembly election to receive donations. That is also a correct statement. Electoral bond act as a bearer instrument in the nature of a promissory note. So here we need to choose number of correct statements. So only 3 statements are correct here. So we covered our polity section, the 2 important topics which we need to discuss in the polity section. Now there are 3 schemes which we need to talk as well. Vibrant Village program recently seen in news. So It refers to the development of villages on the northern border of India. It refers to the special development needs in remote areas. Refers to the development of villages on the western border. Also refers to special development and activities for villages near the coastal areas. So this vibrant village program mainly talks into the development of villages which are near the northern border, which is bordering actually with China, like we have Jammu and Kashmir, we have Himachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh. So these kinds of Uttarakhand, so these kinds of all countries, states will actually come under this vibrant village program. They will be actually developing the villages, the remote villages in the hilly areas nearer to the border area, so that they can be actually like the accumulation of manpower, the military, everything will be incorporated, and there will be development within these areas as well. Because largely because there is a border area and disputed between the countries' bordering areas, these villages are left underdeveloped, so that if even the Chinese military come in, they cannot actually set up their resources within that particular area, because there is no big resources available there. So with this program, we are actually trying to develop these bordering village countries, northern border countries, villages countries, so that they can also get the development that is actually happening in the other parts of India as well. So here the first statement is actually correct. Moving on, consider the following statements about the village defense guards. It works in the Ministry of Defense. Here residents of the remote villages are provided with weapons and armed trainings to defend themselves. The VDGs are first established in 1995 in response to the terrorist attack. We need to choose a number of incorrect statements from the above. So if you are looking at the what is a village defense guard, so the thing is that village defense guard are mainly civilians that has been set up by the government, so that when there is a terrorist attack happening in that particular places, these civilians who are actually trained can fight back. In case if the militaries are lagging behind or they are not able to reach in time, all these areas will be developed such that the terrorist attack can be actually prevented, and the civilians will be armed enough to handle that. So in this program, what they do is they actually train the civilians and they actually provide them ammunition, other weapons and such, so that they can actually protect themselves as well as their community as such. So the VDCs, the Village Development Committees, were actually set up in the mid of 1990s due to the increase of terrorist attack from Pakistan and such. There was a lot of militant attacks happening then and there. So it actually aims to provide residents to remote hilly villages with the weapons and also give them the proper training. This is works under the Ministry of Home Affairs and not the Defense Ministry. The Ministry of Home Affairs decided to set up this village defense committees, and later this village defense committee was later changed to village defense guards. Now this takes place in the Jammu and Kashmir region alone, and a lot of districts has been added within this Jammu and Kashmir. It actually increased the Udhampuri, Rajpuri, Poonch, like certain areas in the Kashmir. All these districts were also added under this village defense committee programs. There was a lot of success with this village defense guards. The number of militancy was actually reduced. The civilians were able to protect themselves with the weapons and training that they actually got from the defense military personnel. So the terrorist attack was actually reduced to a certain point. But this village defense guard had a lot of immunity with them, so they kind of exploited the situation as well. They faced a lot of human rights crisis, there was a lot of sexual abuse happening. So certain cases of that, or if there is positive, this is a kind of negative that actually came along with a lot of power that was actually given to the village defense guards. Now the village defense committees are actually renamed to village defense guard, and this is approved, this is actually works now in the Jammu and Kashmir region, working under this Ministry of Home Affairs. Now the VDGs will function under the directions of the senior superintendent of police or a superintendent of police. So that is how this VDGs will be actually working. Now this is the background of the village defense guards. This is not a very new scheme, but it is an older one. This has been upgraded for a long time, and they have been in news recently because they opened fire on civilians thinking that it was actually terrorists. So that is why the news has been there within the article in the Hindu newspaper. So consider the following statements about the village defense guards. It works under the Ministry of Defense, as I have told you, not a Ministry of Defense, but this Ministry of Home Affairs. Then here residents of the remote villages are provided with weapons and armed trainings to defend themselves. That is the correct statement. The VDGs were first established in 1995 in response to the terrorist attack. So we need to choose a number of incorrect statements. Only one statement is incorrect here. The other two statements are actually correct here. Moving on, Janjatiya Gaurav Divas is actually celebrated in the commemorate which of the following? Recognition the efforts of the tribal freedom fighters. We have recognized the efforts of the Indian National Army in the freedom struggle. Recognize the efforts of Indian soldiers during the World War I. Recognize the effects of, okay, that question is not there, of the Indian soldiers in the Bangladesh war. So we need to choose which is the correct statement here. The thing is, the Janjatiya Gaurav Divas is actually celebrated on November 15th. This November 15th is also known for the birthday of Birsa Munda. You might have studied in your modern history who Birsa Munda is, the tribal leader who led the Mundas into revolt against the British soldier. So the Birsa Munda's birthday is known as the Janjatiya Gaurav Divas. To celebrate the 75 years of independence, the government has recognized the tribal freedom fighters also in their efforts towards gaining the freedom struggle, gaining the independence as well. So this Janjatiya Gaurav Divas is to actually recognize this tribal freedom fighters. So along with this, there has been some schemes rolled out for the particularly vulnerable tribal groups, so that the development also takes place within this particularly vulnerable tribal groups as well. So we will be looking that in the other statement. So here Janjatiya Gaurav Divas is actually related to recognizing the efforts of the tribal freedom fighters. So if you are looking, 15th November is known as the Janjatiya Gaurav Divas. It's actually also number 15th is also the birth anniversary of the tribal leader Birsa Munda. And also they had several tribal movements across, not just the Mundas. There were a lot of tribal movements happening within the British time period. We had the Tamar, Santal, Kasi, Bills, Mizos, all this you might have actually learned in your modern history as well. So this particular day will be actually celebrated every year, and it will actually recognize the efforts of this tribal groups as such. Consider the following statements about the particularly vulnerable tribal groups. There are 134 tribal groups categorized as the PVTGs in India. The Debar Commission created the primitive tribal groups as a separate category in 1973. Among the listed PVTGs, the highest number are found in Odisha. The PM PVTG Development Mission aims to provide a roadmap and telecom connectivity etc. to the PVTGs. As of now, we have only 75 recognized PVTGs. There is a lot of about more than 200 tribal. We have more than 200 plus scheduled tribe groups within India. So out of this, some particular 75 groups are very vulnerable, which means that they are not particularly developed compared to the other tribes. They are very backwards, they are primitive, they have very primitive nature, the development does not happen in a very big scale. So certain categories of scheduled tribe has been actually made into a PVTG, that's particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Now this was first identified by the Debar Commission. The report has stated that about Debar Commission actually created about 52 PVTGs. Later, the government also increased it to 75 to add much more scheduled tribe groups within this category, so that the development missions can be actually ensured up to the last mile. So, the PM PVTG development mission was recently announced by the by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, so that the particularly vulnerable tribal groups, the 75 tribal groups, also gets more development, the telecom community as well, so that they can also come forward with respect to the other parts of India. The Debar Commission, remember, is related to the particularly vulnerable tribal groups, and he has told about, the commission has told about creating 52 particularly vulnerable tribal groups, but we have actually incorporated about 75. It's not 134, it's actually 75, and the highest PVTGs are, the number is actually found in Odisha. We can find a lot of such groups happening in Odisha as such. So here we have to choose a number of incorrect statements. So here only one statement is incorrect, because the other statements are actually wrong here. Correct here. So if you are looking, the PVTGs are among the most vulnerable tribal groups in India. Because of this, they need more kind of development. They are very isolated from the rest of India and compared to the other kind of scheduled tribes as well. We have about 705 scheduled tribes. I mistakenly told it's 200. It's about 705 scheduled tribes within India, and out of the 705 scheduled tribes within India, we have 75 particularly vulnerable tribal groups has been actually identified by the government. The PVTGs are actually spread across 18 states and 1 union territory, but Odisha has the highest number of PVTGs, close to about 2.5 lakh scheduled tribe peoples actually live there. The categories, the population is stagnant, the technology is not up to the mark, they have more kind of primitive subsistence level as such, as well as the literacy level is actually very low. So that is why these 75 out of the 705 scheduled tribes has been actually identified as particularly vulnerable tribal groups. So with this we actually complete the schemes that has been actually announced by the government, and next we will be moving on to the international relations. Which one of the following rivers forms a part of the international boundary between India and Myanmar? We have river Nile, Tayu, Sai and Shuai. So we need to identify which is the which forms an international border between India and Myanmar. So here river Tai forms an international boundary between India and Myanmar. There has been recent news is coming up. I couldn't find a detailed map of this river Tayu, just the river. So I didn't place any kind of map here for your understanding. So you can, if you can actually understand, this actually river Tayu forms a part of the international boundary between India and Myanmar. So if you can see, it actually bordering with Myanmar, it actually marks the border with India's border with Myanmar. The river runs southward along the international edge of the Saital district through Champai, where meet the rivers and flow onwards to Chimtu. So you don't have to go much details into that. The thing is that recently what happened in news that there has been a lot of disturbances happening within the Manipur region. So what they have been doing is that they have been crossing this Tayu river. Smuggling activities has been actually usually happens within the India-Myanmar border, India-Bangladesh region as such. So because of a lot of issues happening within this Manipur region, they had to actually track away from this river, Manipur region and come through this river Thai region into India. Now this Thai river, there is actually very porous border. In majority of this area, the river Tayu is actually the amount of water is very much low, and any people can actually easily pass through this riverbed as such. So because of which a lot of smuggling activity has been happening near this border India-Myanmar region, where this river Tayu has been actually going. So there has been a certain news that has actually come up in the Hindu article. Moving on, Sea Guardian 3 is a naval exercise conducted between which of the following countries? We have Russia, China, Pakistan, China, India, Japan, India, Russia. So here Sea Guardian, you can actually, we feel that it might be related to India, but it's not related to India. If you are looking, we can actually eliminate both of this. Russia and Pakistan and China, we have a common factor of China here. But the thing is that with Russian war, Ukraine war still going on, such an exercise is not possible right now between Russia and China. So we can actually choose Pakistan and China. So the Sea Guardian 3 exercise has been actually happening between Pakistan and China recently. It's a naval exercise that has been taking place between Pakistan and China. Marumex recently seen in news is related to which are the following? Myanmar, Russia first military exercise, new malaria vaccine, Russia and North Korea nuclear deal, India, Russia naval exercise. We know, if you have known from the defense category, we know that Marumex is not a kind what we have actually heard about a naval exercise between India and Russia. Nor is even Russia visiting North Korea, there has been no nuclear deal happening with this Russia North Korea. It's not that it cannot happen, it can happen in the future, but we haven't heard that in news of here. New malaria vaccine, we actually talked about R21, which is the new malaria vaccine. So Marumex is not a vaccine at all, which actually leaves us the option that Myanmar, Russia is the first military exercise has been actually going on recently. The thing is that last week there has been a lot of issues going on. We have the 2+2 India-US dialogue that has been happening, the Sea Guardian 3. The Sea Guardian 3 has been happening, as well as this Marumex. All these three actually happened in the last week itself. With the 2+2 dialogue going on, the China and Pakistan also partnered up for the maritime exercise of Sea Guardian 3, as well as Myanmar and Russia has been undertaking this Marumex kind of military exercises. So with everybody isolating Russia, Russia has been actually going on with Myanmar, North Korea, etc. to create more fundamental relationship with countries like this. So marking that Myanmar, Russia had their first military exercise, that is Marumex. Moving on, Consider the following statements about the Collective Security Treaty Organization. CSTO is a military alliance of 6 post-Soviet nations in the Eurasian region. The CSTO is also known as the Tashkent Treaty. So let us look into what is a CSTO, Collective Security of Treaty Organization. Now this came into existence post it is actually intergovernmental military alliance of 6 countries which actually came post the Soviet era. So it started forming into because there has been a lot of uncertainty and issues that has been actually happening in the Kazakhstan region. So a lot of countries within the Central Asian region came together to form this CSTO alliance. Now this is to curb the protests within has been actually happening in the Kazakhstan region so that the integration does not happen there. The headquarters of the CSTO is actually located in Moscow, and the current members are Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russian Federation and Tajikistan. Initially, if you are looking at this map, there was Uzbekistan, Tajikistan as well as another country. Currently, then we have Georgia, Armenia and Belarus has actually joined. We have Armenia, Belarus and Georgia joining after these 6 countries: Belarus, Russia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan and Armenia. So all these 6 countries started it initially. Then later on the other countries like Georgia actually added in, but when they actually renewed the treaty, only 6 members renewed the treaty. Some members actually moved out. Okay, now there are only presently 6 members, that is Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia and Tajikistan, and its headquarters is in actually Moscow, that is in Russia. So remember the initial one as well as the present number of 6 countries that are actually presently present in the CSTO. So if you are looking, as I have told you, it is actually Intergovernmental Military Alliance. So initially it was signed by the countries like Russia was there, as I have told you. We have Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan and Armenia. These were the 6 countries. Later Azerbaijan, Belarus and Georgia joined, but Azerbaijan as well as Uzbekistan later did not approve of the treaty again. So only the other 6 countries remain, and they are the present countries which is actually present in CSTO. This is also known as the Tashkent Pact or Tashkent Treaties because that is where this was actually signed. Now all these 6 countries, as I have told you, they signed this agreement in 2002 to form this present military alliance of CSTO. So if you are looking back to the statement, CSTO is a military alliance of 6 post-Soviet nations in the Eurasian region. That's a true statement. The CSTO is also known as the Tashkent Treaty. Both the statements are actually correct here. So statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, and statement 2 is the correct explanation of statement 1. So moving on. Next question we have, consider the following statements about the Combined Maritime Force. It is a US-backed counter-terrorism coalition aimed at protecting the international waters. It is headquartered at Bahrain. India is not a member of this grouping. CMF is commanded by the US Navy Vice Admiral. The thing is, this Combined Maritime Force, there are 34 members within this country. India was actually made an associate partner in 2022. We became an associate partner of the CM. Associate partner at 2022. So in this recent 2+2 dialogue between India and US, we agreed to join as a permanent member in this CMF. CMF, permanent member. So the thing is that India is not a member of this grouping. India is an associate member, and we will be actually joining as a permanent member soon. So here this third statement is actually wrong. As it is actually a US-backed program, it will be commanded by the US Navy Vice Admiral. So if you are connecting both these statements are actually correct here. Now we need to look at the headquarters, if it's Bahrain. Thing is that the CMF, Combined Maritime Force, you feel like as US-backed, will be actually in the Western nation, the headquarters might be there, but it's very wrong. This is headquartered at Bahrain only. We need to choose a number of correct statements, so it's 3 here. So let us look into what is a Combined Maritime Force as well. It looks into the anti-piracy, giving security to a lot of areas. So if you are looking, it is actually a US-backed counter-terrorism mechanism. It is a US-backed counter-terrorism mechanism. US-backed counter, as I have told you. The coalition was actually initial formed between about 12 countries, and now it has about 34 countries. So when India joins, it will actually become 35 countries. It is a multinational maritime partnership with a lot of countries based on their rule-based international order as such. The commander is a US Navy Vice Admiral. This present US Navy Vice Admiral also serves as the Commander US Naval Forces Central Command. Like that you need not know, but it's actually commanded by this US Navy Vice Admiral itself. There are certain parts associated. We have the CTF 150, 151, 152, 153. These are some of the regions that are in the Middle Eastern region, which actually look into the countering of terrorism, piracy, also giving security as such. So if you are looking at this map here, there is combined task force. C51 is 152 to ensure the security. We have 150 to look at the maritime security. In this area we have 151. This is mainly for anti-piracy, because this area is particularly known for this piracy kind of problems. So this is for anti-piracy, for acknowledging the terrorism, to giving security as such, security at this particular area. So this is the 150. 150, 151, 152 and 153. These are the 4 areas that has been actually mentioned under the CMF. So that is CMF. So this is actually a US base and it's actually headquartered at Bahrain. Please don't forget this, because because of all this unrest that has been happening recently, a lot of military organization has been coming up, and majority which was started back are also pumping up. Their initiatives are also coming up, because of which these military organizations becomes very important. In the last one we have actually learned about a lot of such kind of military setups and organization that has been started. If you are looking at it, even the CSTO which we looked is such kind of organization. So with that we need to remember such kinds of organization that are present now. So here statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, and statement 2 is a correct explanation of statement 1. Moving on. This CMF has actually, as I have told you, there are 34 members. These are the list of 34 members that are actually present with this combined CMF. India is not a member of CMF and will be joining based upon the India-US 2+Z dialogue, headquartered in Bahrain. Okay. Consider the following with respect to the Global South Summit. Consider the following statement. The first ever summit of Global South was organized by India. The Global South countries include China, Australia, Mexico and Turkey. The Office of the South-South Cooperation UNOSSC coordinates cooperation between the Global South and Global North in collaboration with the G77. Select the number of correct statements from the following. The thing is that the first ever summit was actually organized by India, the voice, that's called the Voice for the Global South. This summit was organized by India in January virtually. This year January, we virtually organized this Voice for Global South. This is the first summit we organized, and it was organized by India, and now we are going to organize a second such summit to get the voice of the Global South region. If we are looking at the Global South, Australia comes under the Global North. It is considered as a developed country. But India, China, Mexico, we still come under the Global South kind of region. The UN Office South-South Cooperation also look into the cooperation between the Global North and the Global South, and this is actually coordinated in collaboration with G77 as well. So we need to choose a number of correct statements. Here only 2 statements are actually correct here. So if you are looking, as I have told you, this Voice for Global South Summit is actually a diplomatic gathering of all the Global South countries, that is developing and underdeveloped countries, so that they can actually collectively raise their voice against certain issues as such. Now, when this first summit was actually organized by India in January 2023, 125 countries from about Asia, Middle Eastern region, Latin America, South America, so all these countries, all countries from these certain areas actually has participated in this Voice for the Global South. And India offered a new agenda to the world: respond, recognize, respect and reform. So that is an agenda that India has given out. Now India is championing as the leader for the Global South as such. So because of which India is actually making a lot of summit related, so that India can emerge as a leader and give voice to the Global South as well. So this is this is known as the Brand line, which you haven't seen, which you can actually see here. This is the Brand line. So Australia does not come under this. This is the Global South, and above this is the Global north. Okay, that has been actually created by a person who thinks that these are developed and underdeveloped countries. So usually when we are addressing the developing countries, it's easier that you read it as global south rather than developing countries, underdeveloped countries and such. Moving on, Catalonia, a semi-autonomous region, is located in which of the following peninsula? Now, Catalonia has been in news for a long time because for thousands of years, a lot of problems has been actually happening in this Catalonia region. Catalonia is actually part of Spain, and as Catalonia is in Spain, it does not belong into the Crimean Peninsula region, which is actually near the Russian region. It does not belong to the Balkan area that is near the Turkey, Australia kind of setup. Scandinavian region is the topmost where there is Norway, Sweden and such, so it's not a Scandinavian peninsula also. Thus, this particular Catalonia is actually present in the Iberian Peninsula. The thing is, before the war, Spanish Revolution, Spanish Civil War and such, this Catalonia was an autonomous independent state as such. But after the Spanish War, the control came under a military government, and because of which the Catalonia's autonomy was suppressed. When the death of that military leader, Catalonia emerged again as an autonomous country, but still partnering with Spain as well. But in 2006, the Supreme Court of Spain stated that Catalonia is actually a part of Spain itself and cannot be given a lot of autonomy. And in 2017, a referendum was actually conducted in Catalonia to gain its independence. More than 90% of the people wanted independence, but the voter turnout was only 43%. The thing is that the Spanish police did not allow the people to come and vote, because of which this referendum had to be cancelled. So, a lot of issues has been actually happening in the Catalonia region, and this Catalonia, the article is not very important, that is because of political reasons happening in the Catalonia and Spanish region. The thing is that the Catalonia and its location becomes important for prelims as well. You need not know what the political situation happening in Catalonia, Spain is, but you need to know the geographical location of these particular areas. So, it comes in the Iberian Peninsula. If you can see here, this is the map. This is Spain, and this is the Catalonia region. They have their own parliament, they have their own setup and such, but they are still undermined or comes under the Spain as such. The military government was actually under Francisco Franco, and when he died, they still got autonomy again. But 2006, even when they were granted autonomy, the Supreme Court actually denied it, and even the 2017 referendum, they did not make it. So, that is the history of Catalonia. Consider the following statements about the Indo-Pacific Regional Dialogue. It is an annual apex-level international conference of the Indian Navy. The National Maritime Foundation is the Indian Navy knowledge partner and chief organizer of each edition of Indo-Pacific Regional Dialogue. Now, this Indo-Pacific Regional Dialogue, both the statements are actually correct here. Indian Navy has actually created this particular dialogue. It has from 2018. Since then, we have annual such conference. Just on the COVID time 2020, we did not have this conference. But we have this conference since 2018. We have the Indo-Pacific Regional Dialogue conference as such. Now, this is organized by the Indian Navy, and the National Maritime Foundation is actually a partner, a knowledge partner, so that comes under. There's a lot of countries that has been actually participating in this Apex International Conference as such. So, here the first statement 1 and statement 2 are correct, and statement 2 is the correct explanation of statement 1. So, it's an AFEC level international conference, annual conference organized by the Indian Navy. In 2018 it was started, but there is an expectation because in 2020, because of the COVID time, we were not actually able to conduct this annual conference. The National Maritime Foundation is indeed an knowledge partner. So, next we will be moving on to the environment section. So, moving on from the environment section, we have consider in the series of a country, which among the following atmospheric gases are mostly considered in calculating the air quality index. We have to choose the number of correct statements. So, before we want to go on to the question, we have been seeing a lot of stubble burning issues or pollutions within the Delhi regions. So, based on this, I have actually put this question as well. So, first we need to know what is air quality index or National Ambient Air Quality Index. So, initially there was National Ambient Air Quality Index. So, under there we have National Ambient Air Quality Index, and then we have a Air Quality Index. In the National Ambient Air Quality Index, there are 12 pollutants. These are the 12 pollutants which you can see here. But in the Air Quality Index, there are only 8 pollutants mentioned. Only 8 pollutants mentioned. Thing is, there is sulfur dioxide, we have nitrogen dioxide, particulate matter 2.5 as well as the particulate matter 10. We have ozone, lead, carbon monoxide, ammonium, benzene, benzopyrene, arsenic and nickel. But these 4, benzene, benzopyrene, arsenic and nickel are the 4 pollutants that is not present in the air quality index. But the other 8 pollutants are present in the air quality index. But you need to remember benzene, benzopyrene, arsenic and as well as the nickel are the 4 pollutants that is not present under the air quality index. Now, if you are looking at this, you can feel this very complex. There is difficulty for you to understand what is happening. So, even the common man will find difficulty in understanding the pollutants that is actually present in the Delhi region or even in India. So, for people to understand the level of pollution much more easily, one color coded, one color coded kind of air pollutants is actually given by the air quality index. So, National Ambient Air Quality Index is there, but for the easy understanding of the people, the air quality index was introduced, which is actually color coded. If there is a particular number, there is a particular color given and there is a particular description given. There is one color green, the number 0 to 50, the description is satisfactory, that is actually good. The air quality is actually very good in this particular area. But if it crosses 50, by 15, 51 to 100, you can say it as satisfactory. 101 to 200, moderate. If it goes more than 200, we are in poor category, then very severe and then very poor and then severe category. Delhi has been actually in this severe category because we can actually find this article during the winter season every year, because due to the stubble burning that has been coming from the national capital region as such, we can state that the pollution level within Delhi has been actually increases, and within the Diwali time and everything, the pollution has been actually increases and it actually reached the severe category as such. So, that is the difference between National Ambient Air Quality Index as well as the Air Quality Index as such. It's very color coded and you can even find it in your phone. If you are looking through the Google or something, you can actually see AQI 50 or AQI 100. You can know the air quality index that is actually present around your surrounding as well through your phone itself. So, that is that easy to understand for the common people. So, if you are looking at the pollutants that are mentioned under this AQI, carbon dioxide, we did not see carbon dioxide there. Carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide are the 3 which is actually present, but methane is also not present. So, here 3 pairs only are the correct answer. Carbon dioxide and methane are not present. This is actually a PYQ as such in 2016 or something. A certain question has been actually asked by the UPSC. So, it is important that you know the pollutants, you know the 12 pollutants as also the 4 pollutants that is not present in the AQI. So, these are something which you need to remember. Green Gas Bulletin is released by which of the following organization? United Nations Environment Programme, World Meteorological Organization, German Watch, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. The Green Gas Bulletin is actually given out by the World Meteorological Organization. So, recently this bulletin has been actually released by WMO, stating that all the countries are not in the way to achieve the Paris Agreement of limiting the temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius. All the commitments that has been made by the countries are not on the target. We are not even going to achieve the sustainable development goals, and also whatever the amount at which we are actually functioning, or we are actually producing a lot of coal and other exhausting the fossil fuels such a way that producing more fossil fuels such a way that we won't be achieving the temperature limitation up to 1.5%. That has been actually stressed again by the World Meteorological Organization to the Greenhouse Gas Bulletin. So, the Greenhouse Gas Bulletin is based on observation from the WMO Global Atmosphere Watch Program, which actually tracks the changing level of greenhouse gases as a result of industrialization, energy usage, fossil fuels resources, intensified agricultural practices and such, and they actually represent the global atmosphere altogether. Now, moving on, we have the science and technology section. Consider the following statements about white hole. White holes are theoretical cosmic regions that function in the opposite way to a black hole. As per the quantum bonds theory, black holes potentially transition to a white hole via bounce. So let us look into what is a white hole. You might know what is a black hole. You have heard that black hole is actually the ultimate graveyard as such. You have heard that no light can actually escape it if it actually enters. So such is a black hole. So white hole is actually an opposite or the converse of what is actually a black hole. White holes is stated that it may be actually a generation of a new universe. As such, a black hole can actually convert into a white hole within a bounds. So they are actually theoretical cosmic region. There is no proof that such regions actually exist, and this actually their existence violates the second law of thermodynamics as such. But this particular author has been stating that there is actually presence of a white hole in the cosmic regions, and they are theoretical cosmic region that functions in the opposite ways to that of a black holes. Just as nothing can escape a black hole, nothing can enter a white hole. In a black hole, nothing can escape. In a white hole, nothing can even enter. So that is a comparison that has been actually given out between a white hole and a black hole. The Rovelli is the scientist who has been discovering or studying about this white holes, and he has suggested that the star is the center of a black hole trying to collapse away to nothing might actually reach a point at which the quantum uncertainty might follow and bounce backwards through time to become a white hole. That is the theory that has been actually stated by Rovelli. There will be a bounce. In the case of bounce, there we can actually observe a white hole as such. So that is the solutions that has been actually given by the scientist Rovelli, who has been actually studying this. So this is what we can see. That is a black hole. You can see this is the black hole which is 100 kilometers across appears. Then there is actually a quantum bounce, a very slow bounce that has been happening, and then it has actually been converted to a white hole, finally appears after billions of years. The conversion of black hole to white hole takes a lot of billions of years. So the Einstein theory predicts a collapse continues down to singularity to zero size. This is what the Einstein has actually predicted. That is what the size escalate to black hole, and then it actually goes to singularity. But Rovelli has suggested that no, black hole goes, it can actually bounce and then form into a white hole that has been actually suggested. That's the quantum bounce theory that has been actually suggested by Rovelli. So the thing is that white holes are theoretical cosmic region. That's the correct statement. And as per the quantum bounce theory, black hole potentially transition to white hole via a bounce. So yes, two statements are actually correct here. We need to choose a number of incorrect statements. So this is a kind of wrong. Incorrect statement. All the statements are actually correct here. With respect to UKL Space Telescope, consider the following statement. It is a part of NASA's Cosmic Vision program. Its primary goal is to study the properties of dark matter and dark energy. This telescope will enable scientists to create a detailed 3D map of billions of galaxies spread across a vast area of 10 billion light years. The thing is that the UKL Space Telescope is not developed by NASA but by the European Space Agency. This is actually developed by the space agency. European Space Agency study the dark matter, the dark energy and such, so that they can actually identify the universe, of what universe is actually formed of, and such kind of questions can be answered. And under this, they are actually looking into create a detailed 3D map of this galaxies spread across this 10 billion light years in about 12 years or such. So that is this UKL Space Telescope has been dealing with. We need to choose a number of correct statements. There are only two correct statements here, and UKL Telescope is actually based on ESA, European Space Agency. So if you are looking, this UKL telescope is actually placed at the Lagrange point 2. We know the Aditya L1 is going to be placed at the Lagrange point 1, but this UKL Space Telescope is actually placed at the Lagrange point 2. Okay, then objectivity, as I have told you, is to study this dark energy and actually dark matter. Moving on, consider the following statements about the Raychaudhuri equation. So this Raychaudhuri equation has been in the final science section of this Hindu article. In general relativity, the Raychaudhuri equation is a fundamental result describing the motion of mere bits of matter. The Raychaudhuri equation plays a key role in investigating the behavior of black hole. So if you need to know, the Raychaudhuri is actually an Indian origin person who has actually learned and brought up in the Barisal region. Born in India, but now in that's a Bangladesh region. So after higher studies in physics, he actually joined the Indian Association of Cultivation of Science in actually 1945. In 1955, he actually gave out the Rai-Choudhury equation, which actually deals with the general relativity, mainly dealing about the black hole, the formation, what all things you can expect from the black hole. So the Rai-Choudhury equation has been actually given out. And Stephen Hawking, using this Rai-Choudhury equation, has been able to develop a mathematical model for black hole. This Rai-Choudhury equation has been actually utilized by this our Stephen Hawking to learn about more, give out more modes of this black holes as such. So you see here, based upon the first statement, in general relativity, the Rai-Choudhury's equation is a fundamental result describing the motion of near bits of matter. That is actually a correct statement. It plays a key role in investigating the behavior of black hole horizons. So here both the statements are correct, and statement 2 is the correct explanation of statement 1. NISAR recently mentioned in news is related to which of the following? Study exoplanets, synthetic aperture radar, navigation satellite of NASA, communication satellite. This NISAR is actually co-developed by NASA and India, and it is a synthetic aperture radar. So that is what a NISAR is. So if you are looking, it is a partnership that has been actually jointly built by a synthetic aperture, NASA ISRO synthetic aperture radar, that is NISAR, and is jointly developed by NASA and ISRO, and is due to launch in January 2024 from our Satish Dhawan Space Center near the polar orbit. Now this is to be going into the LEO session, that is the low Earth orbit, and it will be staying in this low Earth orbit for about minimum of 3 years. This NISAR will actually map the entire globe within 12 days. So that is the purpose of NISAR, to map the globe. Standing at LEO, it will actually map this entire globe, and this will be actually jointly developed by NASA and ISRO. It consists of dual, there is an L band as well as a S band. It consists of a dual frequency as a synthetic aperture radar kind of system. It will actually provide data about natural hazards, about the earth surface, the oil spills, mapping the entire globe. It will actually give us a lot of data on what all is happening around this global surface as such. So that is what is NISAR. NISAR, that is NASA ISRO synthetic aperture radar. Consider the following statements about chikungunya. So recently there was an article about the vaccine that has been developed for chikungunya. It is characterized by severe joint pain and impaired mobility and comes with fever. It is transmission by Aedes mosquito. Xing is the vaccine developed by chikungunya. It contains a live weakened version of chikungunya virus. Here all the three statements are actually correct here. We were choosing about incorrect statement, but here all the statements are actually correct here. There was no particular vaccine that was there for chikungunya, and this particular vaccine, that is Ixchiq, is also in trial phase, has been actually approved. That will actually come as a vaccine for the chikungunya, which is actually transmitted by the Aedes virus. It can actually transmission from person to person, from mosquito to person, as such it can also happen. And this causes a lot of severe joint pain and impaired mobility, and it comes with a lot of fever, cough and such. So it's very important that a vaccine can be actually developed for it also. Fentanyl recently seen in news is related to which are the following. So this particular article, if you have read the article of US and China, this fentanyl has been in news. It's a pesticide, narcotics, antidepressant, food preservative. This actually, the fentanyl is actually a narcotic kind of substance. It is actually basically used in medication for higher kind of medications. If you have advanced cancer and such, phenyl kind of substance is actually used. Morphine is usually used, but this phenyl is more bigger, or the dosage is more bigger than actually morphine. So this phenyl has been used in the advanced stages of cancer and such. So if you are looking, it's actually a synthetic opioid. It's more than 50 to 100 times more potent than the morphine kind of substance that is actually used in this medical field, and it's actually used in this advanced kinds of cancer to treat the advanced cancer is one example. For this advanced kinds of medicinal emergency and such kinds of fentanyl is actually used. So recently the US president and the Chinese president were actually talking and held a summit aimed at easing the tensions between them. Okay, and also an agreement on the fentanyl production crackdown was also agreed upon by the US and China, because a lot of problems, this fentanyl has been used widely in US, and a lot of people has been affected by the use of fentanyl, and Also, the Chinese leader expressed his sympathy for the US victims who were actually devastated by the impact of the drugs in the community. So, if you are looking what happened in the US is that this is actually responsible for the deadly epidemic of opioid abuse that has been actually happening in the US, and because of which more than 1 lakh people were actually killed. Of all the fatalities that happened, 66% of the people were related to the use of the fentanyl as a synthetic opioid that is 50 times more potent than a morphine or a heroin. This is Phenytoin is a paramedical drug that can be prescribed by a doctor to treat severe pain and such. However, criminal organization actually use it and engage it, because of which a lot of victims actually came under this Phenytoin, and because China, who is the largest provider of this, China and US came under the agreement of this crackdown also. We have the last question of arts and culture. Consider the following statements about the leather puppetry. This is an ancient form of practice in Andhra Pradesh. It involves the use of puppets made from goat skin. Its important theme in this puppetry involves epics like Ramayana, Mahabharata as such. So, if you are looking at this figure, this is the form of leather puppetry. This is also known as Tollu Bommalata. This is also known as Tollu Bommalata, and in historically the royal patronage has been actually given, so that this form of puppetry actually goes on as such. But recently the tradition has been lost, there is no patronage, because of it the younger generation is not practicing this field of Tollu Bommalata or leather puppetry, because of which it is fast actually vanishing. So, if you are looking at this kind of leather puppetry has also spread to a lot of other countries. In Indonesia, it forms a part of their intangible cultural heritage of humanity, but this is not a part of an intangible UNESCO ICT in India, but it is actually intangible cultural heritage of Indonesia as such. The thing is that the performers, they recite tales from the Ramayana and Mahabharata. They use the skin of antelope, spotted deer and goat. It was spotted deer and antelope were used, but as they are now scheduled animals, the skin of goats are now used as to make the leather puppetry. Also, this is leather puppetry is also accompanied by other musical instruments like harmonium, portable keyboard organ, then the mridangam, strings of bells and such are actually accompanied with this leather puppetry. It's called Tolu Bambalata in Andhra Pradesh, and it's actually loss of royal patronage, or there is no particular patronage happening, because of which it's fast vanishing. This is also present in Indonesia, where it is actually UNESCO intangible cultural heritage site. So, if you are looking at India, in Andhra Pradesh we have Tolu Bambalata, that is the leather puppetry acceptably. Then we have in Karnataka Togalu Gommayata, Maharashtra Charma Budhinyaya, Odisha Ramacharita, Tolu Bambalata. So, it is important that from the arts and culture point of view, you need to know the particular kind of leather puppetry or shadow puppetry that is associated with each state. As this is in news, you can actually expect a question that is actually coming from here. Important kind of questions that may actually be coming from here as well. So, that is it. We covered a lot of 25 important topics that has been asked, that has been given in the newspaper, and we can actually expect possible prelims question from these areas also. So, that is it for today. Thank you and have a nice day. We will be coming into the next week again with a lot of important prelims content, current affairs as well. Thank you and have a nice day.